Hey, it's Tash from Traffic Snap, and this week I wanted to send you a bit of a screen share video to quickly show you how you can make best use of something within an AdWords account that's really handy for a quick snapshot on whether any changes you have made have had an increase in traffic, a decrease in traffic, but also other metrics that you might be able to look at. So when you go into your AdWords account, you might see your dashboard that looks like this. Obviously with campaigns in there, I've got them paused at the moment. Or it might look like this. So the thing that I've just removed there is the graph that sits at the top. So you can access your graph with this drop down here and you can move it up and down. But this graph gives you a good indicator of comparison metrics. So at the moment we're set to clicks and conversions. Now it's not going to show anything because, as I say, all campaigns are paused, but you will start to see data and a graph up and down here, but you'll see that you've got these two comparables. But what you can do is you can change the information here to do with click-through rate, impressions, cost per click, things like conversion rate, cost per conversion. So these two bits of data here can be changed so that you can have data here that shows the difference between each of these metrics. So that's quite simple, that you can put information up here. So one of the really smart things you can do with AdWords is you'll see when I'm moving across here, there is a section to add a note. To add a note, what you need to do is to get, so let's say I want to change the date and say yesterday I did some work in this AdWords account that was adding some negatives, and I also increased my cost per click on one of my campaigns. So I changed my date range to yesterday, and you'll see there's this tab here. Now if I move here, it won't let me, if I just move without clicking, it won't let me add a note. But if I rest here and click, I can move across into this box to add a note. So I can put a note on here and say, for campaign X, increased cost per click to £2.50. So I put that in there. Then let's say that today, or when this loads, hold on. So then let's say that on Monday the 3rd, I can remember, so if I just go to the 3rd, on Monday the 3rd, I added some adverts to split test under a specific campaign. So as you'll know, anything to do with any changes in the account can have an impact on traffic and can have an impact on different things. So if I go to my date range of the 3rd, I add a note here and I might say for campaign, hold on one second, for campaign XX, applied new headlines to split test. Okay, and then so when that's saved, so I'll show you an overview at the end. And then let's say today, so just today only, what I've done here is I've done a little bit of work on some search terms, some negative keyword work. So for campaign XX, added negative keywords. So I've added those notes in for the different dates that I did the different jobs. So what if I now change this date range to this month? You'll see that there's these tabs that appear at the bottom here, these little squares, and if I hover over them, it will tell you the changes I've made. So for campaign XX, applied new headlines to split test. Then here I increased the cost per click to £2.50, and then here I added negative keywords. And the idea of using this little kind of noted section on this graph is that when you want to look at comparable metrics here, let's say one of the metrics is average cost per click, then where I've made the change here, and I then to change the cost per click, and then I add the relevant performance metric here for average cost per click. Again, I know it's not showing anything because there's nothing live to show. You will have a blue line of what your average cost per click has been. And if you notice that there's a massive increase or anything to do with cost per click in the graph here, you can go back to your note here and say, oh, actually, that could be attributed to this. Or for this one, for example, so applied new headlines to split test, what I might want to do is see if that's had an impact on impressions. So I'll change my one column. I'll just change it to impressions. I don't need to have like comparable metrics. I can just look at impressions as a whole. But I know on this date here, I made some changes to some headlines. So what I might want to see is from this date onwards is whether there's a fluctuation or a change in the information that sits here in this graph to do with impressions, because I know that split testing headlines could have an impact on impressions because it helps to qualify people better, or so it helps give you more information. So if you can use these little note bits at the bottom here every time you make a change, then when you want to have a look at a date range, so this month to date or last month, and see whether the metrics you're comparing here have changed based on these notes you've added and the work you've done, this is a really smart and handy way to look in an account and just get a bit of a snapshot of activity. Hope you found that useful. If you want to talk about anything to do with any tracking like this, or any visibility, or you're getting stuck with anything and just want to have a chat with somebody about it, get in touch with me and I'll help you out. All right, cheers, bye.